Hello, BookTube. I'm back with day 16 of 28 Days of Science Fiction. Today continues the fiction section of my collection, and this shelf consists almost all, except one book, of it's all Simak related, I should say, but all his short story collections, and they're ordered in the order of publication. I'm missing a couple still, about three, I think, to sort of complete the collection. But we'll just start here. Here we got Strangers in the Universe. Clifford Simak science fiction stories. This is the British edition of this. Faber and Faber. Faber and Faber. This was published in 1958. And so this is and he's dedicated this to Shelley and Scott, his son and daughter, or daughter Shelley, who was born in 1951, and Scott was born in 1947. I think it was, yeah. And then he says, "Who someday will read these stories." And it just has a collection of Beachhead, Target Generation, The Fence, Kindergarten, Mirage, Skirmish, and Immigrant. The one interesting thing about the British editions, off the top of my head, I can't remember if there's an American version of this or not, but sometimes the British versions are condensed. Trying to think, they're missing stories that were in the American version a lot of times, and sometimes they have different names. Here we got Aliens for Neighbors. Not a great cover. This is, again, Faber and Faber. This is published in 1960. 1960. So we got Dusty Zebra, Honorable Appointment, Carbon Copy, Idiot's Crusade, Operation Stinky, Jackpot, Death Scene, Green Thumb, and Neighbor. And I don't believe there's any additional material by Simak in these, or there are on a few occasions, but not these two. Now we've got Night of the Pudley. It says 4 long science fiction stories. 5, actually, that's in here. This is White Lion Publishers, the UK, 1962. But it was first published in the United Kingdom by the New English Library Limited. Oh, no, okay. White Lion, 1975, is this edition here. It was originally published in 1962, and the first UK was the New English Library edition, paperback, I believe, in 1964. But this is the hardcover, 1975. It's got Night of the Pudley, Crying Jag, Installment Plan, Condition of Employment, and Project Mastodon, who was later extended or expanded into the novel Project Mastodon, or in the UK it was called Catface. And here's another one. This is an original paperback version of this. Fabulous Richard Powers cover on there. And it says, "Never before in book form, 3 masterful stories from one of the greatest writers of terror and science fiction. Worlds Without End." Belmont Books, April 1964. And we got Worlds Without End, The Spaceman's Van Gogh, and Full Cycle. So as I say, and it even goes on to the back, but it's a bit dark. But yeah, a nice Richard Powers cover. I've got a few paperbacks here because they are original paperback editions. Now we got the best science fiction stories of Clifford Simak, not Clifford D. Simak, Clifford Simak. The British, this is the British edition, published 1965, I believe. Yeah, 1965, I think it is. Yeah. And what we have here is Founding Father, Immigrant, New Folks Home, Crying Jang, All the Traps of Earth, Lulu, and Neighbors, which is, there's duplications, obviously, in some of these. Another one, So Bright Division. This is the UK version again. Nice cover. Mine's a bit sunned on the spine, and the pages are brown. That's what happens to British editions. Published by Severn House. This was published in... Doesn't give me a date, but I think it was sometime in the late 60s, early 70s. We've got the Golden Bugs, Leg Frost, So Bright Division, and Galactic Chest. So Bright Division story is almost like an early AI, artificial intelligence story. But yeah, it's, as you can see, it's sunned, and that was another bookseller that lied about the condition. And we got The Best of Clifford D. Simak. It's edited by Angus Wells, Sedgwick and Jackson. Let's see. Again, they don't give a date for this edition, but I believe it's 1975. And we've got 1939 story, Madness from Mars, Sunspot Purge, The Sitters, The Death in House, Final Gentleman, Shotgun Cure, Day of Truce, Small Deer, The Thing in the Stone, and The Autumn Land. So it goes from 1939 to 1971. A nice little edition of The Best of. Severn House did a lot of these, very similar looking. I've got Frank Herbert in the same edition, which we'll eventually get to see. This is an American edition. This is Skirmish, the Great Science Fiction with Clifford Simak. Very nice edition of this collection. The Great Short Fiction, published by G.P. Putnam Sons, 1977. It's got Huddling Place and Desertion, which are both from City. Skirmish, Goodnight, Mr. James. That's the British name of that, I believe, is The Night of the Puddley. Yeah. The Sitters, The Big Front Yard, All the Traps of Earth, The Thing in the Stone, The Autumn Land, and The Ghost of a Model T. But it's got a forward, really nice forward by Clifford Simak that is about 6 pages long. So that's really nice. Now we get into more British editions, but ones that were specifically done in the UK here, edited by Francis Lyle, who was a academic lawyer from Scotland, and he was a friend of Simak and put together a number of short story collections. And he would have done more, I believe, but I think they lost interest in doing it. A couple of them were only done in paperback, as far as I'm aware. So, but they're all done by Severn House, I think it is. So we've got this one here, Brother, and Other Stories. And it's a thin one. Severn House, published 1986. And it has an introduction by Francis Lyle, so that's quite interesting in here. So, and there's no index or copyright. There's no contents page. Sorry, I do apologize. I'm still having this brain fog at times. Well, it's always there, but sometimes worse than other times. So we got Brother. We've got Over the River and Through the Woods, Auk House, Kindergarten. Yeah, that's it in Brother and Other Stories. Now he continued on with the Marathon Photograph and Other Stories, Severn House again, a slim volume. 1986, And again, an introduction to the stories, but also no contents page. So we got the Birch Clump Cylinder. We've got the Wishing Well. No, the Whistling Well. The Marathon Photograph, and the Ghost, the Grotto of the Dancing Deer. And we continue on with his collections. Off Planet, a larger volume. And this is by Methuen this time. It's got a bit of a split there, which I didn't notice. Methuen. It's collected and edited by Francis Lyle. And it does have a contents page. We got the introduction that's usual from him. Construction Shack, Ogre, Junkyard, The Observer, The World That Couldn't Be, Shadow World, and Mirage. Now we come to two paperbacks that he edited. The Autumn Land and Other Stories. This is Methuen paperbacks. Again, I love this this design, and I do want to get all the books that they were published by them of CIMAC, and I believe they did almost everything. So we got 1990, and we have Rule 18. That's the story that Isaac Asimov, that was published in 1938, that Isaac Asimov wrote in and said he didn't like it, and then CIMAC wrote a letter to him asking him give more details, why it didn't work for you, and then Asimov reread it and realized that he was wrong, and that began a friendship, first through letters and then at conventions. So we got Rule 18, Jackpot, Contraption, Courtesy, Gleaners, and The Autumn Land. And then we got Immigrant and Other Stories. And this was published in 1991, again by Mandarin Methuen, with the usual sort of prism A. Got Neighbor, Green Thumb, Small Deer, Ghost of a Model T, Bite Your Tongue, I Am Crying All Inside, and Immigrant. And yeah, I'm putting some paperbacks on the shelf because it's CIMAC. And I haven't done that with other authors because I got a lot of paperbacks and I don't have enough space, but I make an exception for CIMAC. Then we've got, it's not the last collection. Second last collection I think he did, Francis Lyle. This is a larger one. The Creator and Other Stories. And The Creator was originally published in 1934 by a sort of semi-professional magazine, and it became very popular and sort of heretical or blasphemous. And again, it's collected and edited by Francis Lyle. So we got The Creator, Shotgun Cure, All the Traps of Earth, Death Scene, Reunion on Ganymede, The Money Tree, Party Line, The Answers, and The Thing in the Stone. And this was published in 1993. The last one that he did is The Civilization Game and Other Stories by Clifford D. CIMAC. And just Other Stories, edited by. Kind of a salacious cover for that one. And it's kind of weird because I looked this up because I thought, well, this is a little rough, and I really like it, and I wonder if I could get a better copy. And it's like very expensive, and I was lucky to get this one. Published in 1997. That was the last one. The usual, like all these have an introduction by Francis Lyle. We've got The Horrible Example, The Civilization Game, Hermit of Mars, Masquerade, Bucket of Diamonds, Hunch, The Big Front Yard. And this is the 7th collection. So is that right? Do I have them all? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 7. So I do have all 7. And then we've got this one here, which is just a miscellaneous collection, not very well bound, by Tachyon Publications, Dark Regions Press, out of San Francisco, published in 1996, so it was a year before The Civilization Game. It has a introduction by Paul Anderson, And it has 9 stories: Death in the House, Big Front Yard, Goodnight Mr. James, Dusty Zebra, Neighbor, Over the River and Through the Woods, Construction Shack, and Grotto the Dancing Deer. Anybody's interested, I was just speaking to Scott Danielson about audio books. Jonathan Frakes of Star Trek The Next Generation did a narration of Over the River and Through the Woods. Yeah, I'm sure it's that one. If anybody's interested, I've not listened to it myself, but yeah, this is a nice collection. It's cloth bound, but it's not very well bound. That's the thing, like or the binding of it. But the cover's kind of interesting, though. Even so. Now we get 2 other collections that are interesting. That never came to fruition, their plan, and it was done by Dark Side Press out of Seattle, and this is 2004, and they were limited to 520 copies. 500 for sale, and this is copy number 54. And it's Eternity Lost, The Collected Stories of Clifford D. Simak, Volume 1. And they put out a number of books, but they went, I guess they went out of business. And the idea was to do, I think, 10 volumes for Simak science fiction stories. I don't know if they meant to do everything, but it was all done through with the okay of the estate by Clifford D. Simak, and there's story notes and an introduction story notes by Phil Stevenson Payne, a British bibliographer, and introduction by John Pellin, who was the I think the owner of Darkside Press. And the artwork here is by Alan Kowalski for this. And in this volume, there's a number. We've got a how-to, Founding Father, Kindergarten, The Answers, Way for the Hangtown Rebel. So there's actually a Western in here. Carbon Copy, The Observer, a Jackpot, Sunspot Purge, The Call from Beyond, Buckets of Diamonds, Eternity Lost, and then the story notes. I'm pretty sure, yeah, the Way for the Hangtown Rebel is a Western story. Let's see here. Yeah, it was a Western story. It was originally published in Ace High Westerns in 1945. Nice preface, frontispiece artwork in this one, and that's the same as there on the cover there, as you can see. And there's a few other, I think, illustrations throughout, or not. I can't seem to see any. But there was 2 volumes published, as I say. The second one is Physician to the Universe, Collects Stories of Clifford Simak, Volume 2. And this was published in 2006. Introduction by Barry and Malzberg. Story notes by Phil Stevenson Payne. The notes are very brief. And then Alan Kowalski, again, for the artwork. And the same frontispiece there. But we've got New Folks Home, Small Deer, The Birch Clump Cylinder, Gunsmoke Interlude, so another Western, Shadow Show, Crying Jag, Mutiny on Mercury, Worrywart, Infiltration, The Reformation of Hangman's Gulch, another Western, Horrible Example, and then Physician to the Universe. And this again is a limited number to 520, but 500 for sale, and this is number 269. This one here. Now we had sort of after this there was a bit of a dead period for any collections of Clifford Simak until the estate, David W. Wixon, who's the executor of the estate, started a 14-volume collection of all the short fiction of Clifford Simak, including all the westerns and his air war stories, or at least all that he could find. What they did was they bought it all back, the ones that were still sort of out there and not under the control of the state. But I think some are still in public domain. I'm not quite sure the legalities of all that, and he put them in 14 volumes, which I have all 14 volumes here. They were published by Open Road Media. Just, I don't know, just they're print on demand, so they're very crappily made, and just not very good cover art. So, but I'm happy to have it, though, even so. But the other thing that I dislike about it is I wish it was done chronologically. I really wish it was done chronologically. But he's got an introduction in each volume. Dave Wixon does, as well as prefatory notes for each story, where he digs into Simak's diaries, letters, notebooks, and puts any information in about being sent back, how much he got for the story, and wherever that information, or if it's available, he puts it prefatory to the notes. I won't go through every story and every one, because it'll take a lot of time. I'll show each volume, though, and give the year. This is 2015 was the first volume that was put out, and it's printed nicely for the most part, but I just wish there'd be nicer editions. That's the one thing that I wish. So we got volume 2, which was published, it should be 2015 as well. 2016, actually. And the same thing, an introduction, and he calls them different things. This one is, the first one is called I'm Crying All Inside, which is one story that's in here, and this one is The Big Front Yard and Other Stories, volume 2, 2016. And each one has a western in as well, because I think there was 12, or there might have actually been 14 westerns. And Air War is the Air War stories as well. Volume 3, The Ghost of a Model T. The cover art, you think they could have splashed out a little bit more. But introduction as well. This is 2016, this one. Grotto of the Dancing Deer is volume 4. That was a little better. That sort of makes sense for the story Grotto of the Dancing Deer. 2015. So these were published. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry. Yeah, this is the introduction that was 2015. So he wrote some introduction, and that was published or copyrighted 2015. The copyright of this book is 2020 for volume 4. Volume 3 is 2016 for the book. Uh, 2016 for volume 2. And 2000 and probably 16 again. No, 2015 for volume 1. So then we go to volume 5, which is No Life of Their Own and Other Stories, published 2020. And volume 6 is New Folks Home and Other Stories, published 2020. Again, I don't know. I don't really care for the design. Volume 7, A Death in the House and Other Stories, published 2020 as well. Volume 8, Good Night, Mr. James and Other Stories, 2020 as well. This is Earth for Inspiration and Other Stories, Volume 9. Did I have Volume 8? Yeah, that was Volume 8, the previous one, I think. Is that right? Yeah, it was Volume 8. Good Night, Mr. James. So Volume 9 is 2022, Earth for Inspiration. And in one of these volumes, and I'm not sure which story it is, there was the expected sort of third volume, Dangerous Visions by Harlan Ellison, that was never published. But one of the stories was a Clifford Simak story. They bought it back, and it is published in here for the first time. So we got Volume 10, The Ship Shape Miracle, and Other Stories, published 2022. And Volume 11, Dusty Zebra and Other Stories. That was done out of order, because that was 2022, and this is 2021. Yeah, Volume 10, so 2021 is Volume 11. And Dusty Zebra, if you ever wondered what happened to your, you lost things like pencils and things like that, the Dusty Zebra story explains everything. Volume 12, published in 2022, The Thing in the Stone and Other Stories. Buckets of Diamonds and Other Stories, Volume 13. And this was published in 2023, just last year. And the last volume of this, Volume 14, was published in 2023 as well. So that completes all the stories. There's about 120 some, or 100 maybe 140. I can't remember now. There's about 10 stories in each, so it must be about 140 almost. Yeah, something about that, 140 some stories. Just under 150 stories that he wrote. And as I say, that includes all the science fiction. That includes the westerns and air war stories that he wrote. And the last one on this shelf is starting to get into, well, it was just because I needed space for this one, was an edited book of science essays that he did called The March of Science by Clifford Simak. And this is sort of a library edition, but I was really surprised and pleased to get this. Published by Harper Row Publishers. It's edited by Clifford Simak, and it was published published 1969. I don't have actually a date here, and I can't remember, but they're all sort of essays that were collected that were published in the Minneapolis Star and Tribune that he was the news editor of, and they include Alan E. Norris. Let's see, there's Robert Silverberg, Isaac Asimov, and Willie Ley, and Simak does a very, very brief introduction to it. So anyway, that's the first shelf of Clifford Simak, and then we'll go on to the novels for shelf 16. See you next time, BookTube. Thank you.